Annie eventually succeeds, but only to realize that there's another room on the other side of the wall. Sensing the incoming danger, Annie and others quickly venture into the room, but something catches the attention of Bryn and she stays back. Everyone asks her to come, but with a swift move, the giant monster swoops her up, killing her. Afraid for their lives, the group flees the scene and they finally run into Dave. Annie then leads them through a small door which takes them to a strange room consisting of a table and chair made of cardboard paper. After reaching safety, Annie and Dave get into an argument and everyone blames him for their predicament. Dave mentions that he warned them against entering, but nonetheless, he promises to get them out. He then asks everyone to follow him into a secret door, but ends up leading them through a pipe which turns them into cardboard characters. Annie and the others demand answers from Dave and he assures them that it's going to be okay after they get back to the apartment. But right then, the giant shows up, prompting the group to run for their lives. Dave leads them out of the room, and this time, something good finally happens. When they cross a tunnel, they all come out in their normal forms. The Minotaur also follows them outside, but Dave builds a temporary wall to turn him away. In the next scene, the situation again starts to heat up. Everyone wants to escape the maze and they all start to argue with each other. When things get out of hand, Dave steps up and reveals that in order to escape, they have to complete building the unfinished maze. However, Annie refuses to let him continue and instead orders him to lead them out of the maze. Dave reluctantly agrees, and as they try to find a way out, they come across a strange wall. Surprisingly, Dave notes that he doesn't recall building it. Meanwhile, Leonard returns home and he too enters the maze. Unfortunately, the first thing he sees is the Minotaur's axe and Jane's severed head lying on the ground. As he walks away, it's shown that a giant origami insect has clung onto his back. Elsewhere, Dave takes Annie and others to the entertainment room where he shows them the old British entertainment. He then takes them to another peculiar room with a strange enticing opening on the wall. It has a hypnotizing effect and Annie and the others are drawn towards it. However, Dave warns them to stay away from it. When others don't listen to him, Dave reveals his hand, which has turned into cardboard after he stuck his hand into the opening. The group then continues their journey, only to realize that the maze has started to grow by itself. Overwhelmed by the strange incidents, Dave loses it and calls for everyone's help in killing the giants so that he can finish building the maze and finally head home. Unfortunately, the group turns the idea down. And even in such a horrible situation, Harry suggests taking Dave's interview for the documentary. The latter reluctantly agrees, but he pours his heart out during the interview. He admits that he hates himself for being an unemployed 30-year-old who is still dependent on his parents for everything. It turns out he built the maze so people including his parents could realize that he too can do something. He also apologizes for the people that died in the maze. Hearing his emotional outburst, Annie becomes emotional and promises to help him get out of the maze. The group then starts thinking about the escape plan again with a newfound interest. Gordon notes that since the maze is somehow alive and growing, it must have a heart which they could find and kill. Dave agrees and says that everything usually has a weak spot, but unfortunately, he didn't build one for the maze, because he didn't want anyone to destroy it. In response, Gordon comments that Dave didn't finish the maze because you can't fail if you don't finish anything. However, Annie empathizes with her boyfriend and explains that everyone has to deal with failure and it's a part of life. She then encourages him to build the chrysalis so they could destroy it and get out. Following this, Dave and the group again start exploring the maze and they come across Bryn, who was killed earlier. She has now turned into a paper toll and is tied to the wall. Bryn asks the group for high fives, but knowing that it's most likely a trap, they refuse to give her one. Dave and Annie continue to look for their destination while Gordon and the rest stay behind to distract Bryn. In the next scene, Dave and Annie walk for several minutes until they come across a dark tunnel. The movie then cuts to a scene where Dave and Annie are having a conversation where Annie continues to play the role of a successful woman while Dave stays a bum. The scenario keeps changing, but they are still happy to be together. Back in the dark tunnel, the couple reaches the center of the maze. They then start to build the heart of the maze. After completing it, Annie uses a sword to hack through the cardboard wall. Gordon and others sense this and they promptly tie up Bryn to keep her from attacking Annie. However, Bryn transforms into a giant hand and retreats back to the ground. In the process, the cameraman gets dragged into it, but not before he heroically saves all his equipment. The rest of the group then proceeds to join Annie and Dave at the center. However, on their way there, Gordon gets separated from others when he is chased by the giant Minotaur. Annie and Dave set up the heart as Harry and his team capture the moment. As the heart comes alive, the Minotaur continues to chase Gordon, during which he witnesses Leonard getting killed by cardboard blades. Back at the center of the maze, Dave strikes the heart with the sword and destroys it. Finally, the entire thing starts to fall apart and the group emerges from the rubbish. Everyone's safe now, but Dave is upset about destroying his hard work. Harry cheers him up and tells him that at least he has a documentary to look up to. The group then cleans the mess and dumps the scraps outside. As they leave, the Minotaur emerges from the scrap along with an origami bird, ready to take revenge from humankind.